Hey, this is Josh Fletcher. Welcome to another DS Laird. I'm joined by Clint Vosley. Hey, Clint.
Morning, Josh. Very, very early for you this Saturday morning.
It is very early, 6:15 in the morning.
Oh,
But I'm raring to talk about information governance and data quality. Is our topic this morning?
for anybody who claims to be data geeks, I mean, you and I, it's 8:15 on a Saturday morning, and I'm choosing to talk about data quality instead of being on the beach surfing. So that deserves, if Nick Fish does listen to this, that deserves a data geek T-shirt of note, or Nick Smith,
Mm, mm.
Nick Fish Twitter tag. You know what I mean?
So, yeah, we wanted to talk about information governance and data quality and kind of talk first about the challenges and the ways to get it set up in your organization before we even get to the technology. So to kick us off, first of all, we wanted to talk about funding, right? So what do you think, Clint? When you need to fund an information governance or a data quality project, where do you start in your organization?
It's tricky, and to be honest, I'd say 95% of the companies or the projects I've worked on, that's the main stumbling block. For some reason, I mean, I think this is why I'm on the call, because I'm very passionate and outspoken about this area of the whole sort of analytics world. But people just don't want to spend money on it. It's very much the afterthought. Well, let's just get this project done, and then we'll look there later.
Mm.
Um, and I've got various analogies that you guys have made fun of me over the years about. But for me, there's the main, you don't want to use fear as an option, but it's actually just showing the top from a CFO business level. I think this has got nothing really to do with us as IT people. We just enablers to help, sort of help, visualize to the business what the problem is, but just almost from a fear factor, show them the effects of having bad quality of information. So, that could mean in various ways that that you could disclose incorrect profits, or you could do, you could sort of distribute medication to people who shouldn't get it because of bad data quality, which could cost lives, which could sort of, I wouldn't say embarrass the company, but cause public embarrassment.
Mm.
For some strange reason, when people only see that kind of data quality, or you put a number to it, so due to the bad data quality, we're losing $10 million a year. Will they actually suddenly find bad funding? Otherwise, in my experience, it's been a really, really tough thing to do. How about you, Josh?
Yeah, so I mean, the examples you've talked about, I think, are good ones. If you can identify very specifically that they're losing, the company's losing money or they're losing profit because of a specific issue, that's normally enough to get the attention to look at a data quality initiative across, maybe as a pilot or something like that. In government or healthcare or industries that are regulated, it's also a good opportunity that they have to comply with external auditing. And I've worked with organisations here in Western Australia where they have ministerial questions that come down from the government, and if they answer those questions, they have to always that number has to be the same forevermore. They can't change their mind in
Yeah.
a year, so. It puts them in a really interesting position where they need to manage their data so that they can, go back in time, and if they do make a change, then they need to be able to explain that. But the other thing I was thinking of is unfortunately it's difficult. Organisations will have so many different data quality issues, but it's really finding that the kind of the one that's going to draw the most attention to kind of kickstart how you can fund or get internal support for an initiative.
Yep.
Otherwise, because a lot of the smaller ones actually don't have so much of a material impact. It may just maybe makes people's jobs go slower, or reporting is more difficult, or systems don't integrate as well. But it actually doesn't cause, I'm going to lose $5 million of profit this year because of this particular problem. But what I've seen in the organisation where I'm now is it's actually been whoever started the BI project or program of work within IM actually included data quality as one of the projects from the outset of that program of work, and so that means we've been able to start to execute on that without having to look for a specific issue. It's just been that, hey, it was already part of our BI initiative. which has been great.
Do you think just another something that else came into my mind is it's one of those things of how deep does a rabbit hole go? So people understand that the systems aren't where they should be, and the quality issues are there. And if if you'll start that sort of geez, my word, my brain's fried. I need another coffee. But you start that sort of massive sort of my word. I've lost the wording, but anyway, you start that huge ripple effect of data quality if you actually start looking. Do you think people, I mean, obviously we as technology people and data geeks know that, but do you think the business generally is oblivious to that, or they just don't even want to go down that? It's that door that just doesn't want to be opened.
I think people are definitely aware of it when things break in their systems, but they're not looking at tables, in databases and seeing the quality of data day in and day out, like you would if you're in a BI or a data warehousing project, or looking behind the front end application. Let's just take some kind of reference data or master data table. Very easy for you or me to run a query and kind of just show me all the results. If I've got 100 records in there, it's really easy for me to kind of quickly see where the data quality issues are. But for a business user, they maybe are adding them or editing them one line at a time. Their screen will only show them one record at a time, and they probably don't even look at the ones that have been there historically. They're only just looking at the ones that they're using now. So it's a very different, interaction with the information when you've got an application in front of that data set. So I think they are aware of them when things break and they log tickets, but they maybe don't understand the full, I guess, amount of issues, because you're never looking at the data holistically as a business.
That's a very good point. I mean, we're always looking at it from an analytic point of view once it's run down the stream, and we have to actually try match it and merge it to all the other data sets, and that's so. I think that leads us on to the next question.
Well, just before I I know we didn't want to talk about technology at the outset, but something that I found really useful, and I know you've done the same thing, is Explorer, and even just with Excel data, and that tool, I think above all the other tools I've seen, lets you show data quality issues with master data, especially so quickly to a business user. You have this particular information set, I'll just load all into Explorer and I'll automatically get a kind of the distinct values in each column, and it's really easy to show that, hey, look, there's nulls here, and if it's that null is associated with this amount of revenue or something like that, and really easy to kind of highlight those. So anyway, sorry, that's just a...
I'm an Explorer fanboy as well, so don't worry about it. I think that, leads us on to the next point of, say you've got funding. Say you're in one of those lucky cases where people said, right, let's start this initiative, or let's focus on financials or something that's going to, hit the bottom line. Who owns the data, my friend? It's once again that divide between business and IT. What's your perspective on that?
I think it actually comes down to joint ownership, because especially if we take it in the context of data quality management, data quality can be expressed in there can be a technical reason why the quality is bad, and I think IT and IM need to own that, or there may be a business process issue or a data capture issue which is causing the data quality problem. So I think at a high level, it needs to start with the business, and some of the things we're looking at putting in place is dedicated stewards and custodians of that information. That this part of the business is responsible for this set of data because they produce it, and they have the overall ownership, and then the technical custodian is whoever manages that system, whether it be the source application or the data warehouse. And they all need to work together if there's a data quality issue to be, maybe identified and investigated and eventually resolved.
See, I see it differently. I very much see, IT. If you look at it from data quality stems from source systems. That's pretty much it, and Computers don't create bad data. Humans do. So that's where it comes from. So my nirvana or my strange dream world. Just, how's that? Thanks, my boy. So just a carrot juice delivered by my son. How's that for an early morning treat? Sorry? All sorts of fruit juice. Unbelievable. Where was I? So, but so as I was going back to my point, is that humans create bad data, not computers. That's the reality, yes. And I don't want to come back to the person inputting data into a source system, but generally an end user will find a shortcut to put whatever input data they want to do into the input data to get through the workload. That's just generally what happens. And in most call centers or in most sort of, I wouldn't say call centers or people processing a lot of information, they are generally rewarded on the quantity of work that they do. Now, as I said, going back to my Nevada before my juice arrived, is if you have a organization where people from the business point of view will actually reimburse people on the quality of the information that they put into the system, to me, that's when the problem will stop getting solved. And I've only seen that once in a company ever, which was back in Africa. I went to a company and said, so, it's the usual question coming in there, I suppose, from the consultant hat. So where does your business sit? That's to the CFO office. And I was like, oh, okay, that's strange. I've never heard that in my life before. How's your data quality? No, it's amazing. Because, and as the questions went on, their problems were more sort of how do we deal with the volume of data, or how do we deal with sort of merging systems. It wasn't the core, problems that you and I face in every single day of customers of, we don't trust our system, we don't trust this, we don't trust that, because it was so heavily driven from the business point of view, and their end users or people creating the source data were actually rewarded on the quality of information. And that was amazing. So that's why I believe it sits with the business. IT, as I suppose IT should be an enabler, and say, right, using the tools or using the data quality, this is what you're producing to help them as a scorecard, almost to help them in better the quality. But I think we should be nerds instead of being nerds.
So one of the one of the things we've found in the organisation where I'm at is that there's been a couple of issues with the data warehouse. Well, take her outside. One is that the business rules have been improperly defined into the data warehouse, so we're getting incorrect quality of information shown because business rules are incorrect. And there may be joining of transactional data to master data and things like that. But the other thing has been...
Sorry to cut in, Josh. Is that from the ETL tier, or is that just from where are those business process mapping wrongs?
It's in the ETL, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But the other part to it is that the architecture of the data warehouse has some things that need to be resolved. So one of the things we do, for instance, is we do, at the moment, we load facts, we update dimensions only when a fact comes through. So you're not getting, we're not doing the kind of standard load a dimension and then load all the facts. We're actually, a fact row will come in and we'll go and find the dimension value and then insert it. And that causes issues where maybe transactions never make it in because they can't find a dimensional value or things like that. And all of a sudden the business is losing trust in the data warehouse. So
that's weird.
Will, take her out. Yeah, I know. Sorry. Puppy and 5-year-old.
Carrot juice. It's going off the rails here.
Yeah. There we go. There it goes. So, I guess that's where I see, sometimes we need to be responsible from a technical data quality perspective, because, there are cases where it maybe its business rules have been improperly defined, and it's no point trying to figure out if the business didn't define them or IT, it doesn't really matter. It's like, well, then how do we, move forward and improve it? But it's actually more of a technical improvement than a business needing to be responsible for that. But of course, they need to be the ones that define what the process should be. If we have done the incorrect join, how do we join it properly? They need to be the ones to define that.
So here's another thing which I've done a lot over the years, and it's just a matter of need, I guess, is a lot of companies have those old source systems, old mainframes, AS400s that no one really wants to touch, and there's some what's that, pick program or whatever that's called, that no one really, you can't find them. So you're stuck with what you get. And a lot of the time in ETL, whether it was data services or data stage, you put a lot of data quality, a lot of transformations in there to make sure that your end users actually get data they can trust. So there again, you're not doing a data quality initiative, and I think that kind of leads on to the next point we want to talk about, where you've suddenly got these huge data quality rules, transformations, in your case, sitting in SQL scripts, sitting in ETL jobs. That happens more often than we'd like. How do you get around that?
So I guess it depends on the tools you have available, but definitely you end up becoming a SQL ninja. Right, it's been several years where I've been running BI projects, and so I've been doing architecture and system design, and I haven't been hands-on SQL for a while, and now coming into this new role, I'm just doing a lot more SQL, and it's good to be back on the tools, so to speak. But building up, SQL files that will give you the information you need. I know I was just talking to some of our support team, and they do regular checks every day on the quality of the information, because we have a few known issues with our warehouse that are in the process of being resolved. But we're getting multiple. I think we're getting duplicate fact records into a fact table, or things where we haven't got a full reconciliation because of maybe some upstream technical challenges and stuff like that. And so they're actually running scripts every day to figure out what maybe if there's an incident they need to raise and go forward and resolve. Yeah,
it's and then it gets in. I always use the example frank.sql. It's a script file that got written by somebody. It's 3,000 lines long, and no one dares touch it because it might break it.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, besides your current role, have you used? I mean, a lot of the tools have data quality built into them. I mean, I know data services have some, data quality transformations. Data Stage, which I've used a lot from IBM, they had Quality Stage. That was actually an add-on that you had to buy, or you had to use Enterprise for that. How far down the road do you think that the ETL tools can take you? It's very much a cleanse on load, a kind of approach, in my opinion.
Exactly,
it's not sort of like a company-wide strategy of let's see how bad things are, and let's kind of get that scorecard of where we need to go. So how far have you gone in your experience with ETL and with SQL?
So I guess this is where it comes back to funding as well, right? Because tools that do a lot of data quality aren't cheap, and there's actually a whole amount of investment required to actually design a solution that will leverage those tools effectively. Definitely with some of the data quality capabilities in data services, for instance, you're able to replicate them in ETL if you wanted to, without having to actually use a specific data quality transform. So,
I just took that from.
if you need to do it on the cheap, normally you'll be able to find some kind of a workaround where you're just using the basic ETL capability without having to use the data quality transformations. And they just provide a faster and standardized way of cleansing your information. But I think there is a large investment around using that capability. Like if I think around the deduplication capability, which is a good one, where you maybe have 3 customer systems or 10 customer systems, and you need to kind of do a golden record kind of capability where we end up with one customer line that maybe grabs attributes from various systems depending on a whole heap of rules. There's a whole amount of work before you even touch the tools around understanding your data and profiling it, and then actually figuring out all of those business rules and the weightings and all that before you can actually then go and build it in the ETL tool. So the capabilities are there. I think, from an Australian perspective, the companies I've worked with, the maturity, I think, around using those kinds of capabilities isn't there in a lot of cases. They're still at the kind of, how do we actually define owners of this information back in the business, and we don't even understand the quality of the information we have in our systems before we, that's like, I guess, 5 years down the line when you're looking at applying, very sensible quality transformations to information. They're just not ready.
I mean, that whole master record and the whole quality of information of the customer data. Let's use that as an example. Um, I had a partner company in Africa that I used to use. It was actually my former boss who used to run Sybase. But I saw that stuff and I got scared, and I just kind of used to I wouldn't say outsource it to them, but it's such a science around that. And when you get into the fuzzy matching and the golden record and all that stuff, that to any customers going down that route, my advice is like speak to the pros. Speak to people who've done it before. I don't think you can find someone who's a business object shop who's now going to create this whole master data strategy for you, because it is a strategy.
Yeah.
It's a whole governance strategy plan for your organization. It's not just okay, well, let's spend a couple of dollars on a tool and we're going to figure it out. So
sure.
I think that's key advice.
And the value needs to be there for the organization as well. Sometimes it's easy, especially for us as more technical people, to kind of look at, you've got these 10 disparate customer systems, and I can build like this one set of customer information that's unique, and it's fantastic. I mean, there's actually a company here in Perth who I won't name, but they I have a relative who used to work for them, and they're renowned, like in their internal systems, and I've done a little bit of work with them, are just completely a mess. And they copy their customer data to all these different systems, and you may exist in one of those systems but not the other as a customer. William.
Yeah.
And they actually, I think, having spoken to some people there, they don't really mind about having all this disparate data. They're not that bothered about having kind of one golden customer record. So the value needs to be there for the organization, and I guess normally if it's not there, then you're not going to get funding for the project anyway. But sometimes it's easy to do a technical solution without actually understanding what the value will be to the organization. William, go. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so on that topic of the record, there's a retail chain here in Australia. I won't mention them as well. Okay.
All right.
Cash, we'll pick it up again. What have you got the minute mark there, so we can know when to edit? Okay. There's a retail group that I went to a presentation at the SORC Summit in Sydney last year about how they, their full SAP implementation and how they trying to create that quality record. And since landing here, I've been going to one or two of their different chains, different shops, and I've noticed how they're really pushing the cards. And and when you speak to the teller, when you hear the teller speaking, they're talking about a new system. So they're obviously really trying to, obviously heard the presentation in September to actually going into the store now. They're obviously trying to, because it's completely different sectors. I think it's 8 different parts of retail that this company owns. For them, the value is that if someone's going to go buy a umbrella, then they're also going to go buy, a couch or whatever it's going to be. So it was just quite interesting to see it in practice, once you're in the store. Because for them it is obviously value. They've realized that cross-selling is very important.
Yeah, it's I remember it just a thought in that around sensitivity of information. Because it's also easier for organizations to go, if we collect all this data and we, Google's a really good example of how much information they'd have about you, all your emails and your calendar and so on, and what they can actually do with that information. You start to think about the kind of individual, personalization capabilities and targeted selling and whether people are comfortable, with your information being owned like that. I remember hearing an anecdote where a large retail chain in the US developed a process where they could do some predictive analytics based on who had bought stuff from them about pregnancy. They could actually, I think, predict pregnancy within one of their customers to like 95%, and it blew up in their face when they actually sent a targeted letter drop out to this young girl who was like 15, and her dad was like, my daughter's not pregnant, but she'd actually started buying things that indicated that she was pregnant, and it was I think it blew up in their faces, and it was like a nationwide media expose. But I mean,
there's actually an example like that at Tesco's in the UK, the exact same thing. Yeah. And then the father had to do a retraction saying, I apologize, my daughter is pregnant. I didn't realize that I obviously didn't realize what she was up to at night.
Yeah.
So there's another story like that as well.
Mm. But I guess it goes to show you need to think through, what it actually means from having that information, and comes back to corporate responsibility, I guess, as an organisation. There's a nice little sidetrack there. Sorry.
Yeah. So on another sidetrack, which I'm not really known for, but what I was thinking, what are the nastiest things I've ever done in an organisation, from in terms of a data quality management point of view, working for a financial organisation, and one of the key inputs for the reconciliation that actually went to the stock exchange was an Excel spreadsheet. Wonderful, but it just was what it was, and the data quality kept on coming back like shocking. We couldn't match anything. We couldn't match it to the current sort of schemes. The signs were often the wrong way around, and it was just a nightmare. So eventually, what we did, we didn't have a data quality tool. We were using DataStage from an ETL point of view. Is when we'd load this file in through the process, and we'd do all the checks, and if it failed the check, we'd obviously come up with an error report saying these are the files, this is not matching, this is it. But we used to distribute that via email, and we distributed it via email, and nothing happened. As soon as we just put the CFO on the list, on the CC list, suddenly our data quality issues just disappeared, because there was visibility of the garbage coming into the system, and here's someone who has to, sort of legally sign off on the numbers. Was realizing that it was just kind of a bit of a cowboy show, and that's probably the nastiest thing I've done to sort of try sort of implement data quality through ETL, but it worked like a charm. I wasn't very popular, but the CFO was very happy, I guess, which is key.
Just coming back to the point you made about incentivizing, people data entry via teams of people like call centers or sales reps are a really good example as well, where in one sense, it makes sense to incentivize them for the quality of the information they enter, which the business can then use. But especially with sales reps, it's a really, I guess it's a two-edged sword, right? Because sales reps are typically very protective of their leads, and they hold them very close, and they may not enter them into a CRM system until very late in the process, because they're being protective of their patch, and they may move around organizations, and so if they need to take leads with them, they can, and that kind of thing is. And that, it comes down to, I guess, almost some process re-engineering or kind of working with your sales team to understand what data you can capture and so on. But there are some challenges, I guess, there from a business perspective around implementing that kind of an incentive program. Right?
Absolutely. I think the sales thing's a different monster, I guess, because it is all about relationships. The salesperson builds personal relationships with people. Whereas if it's someone just processing invoices, we use call centers again, but then there's no personal relationship. They're just capturing data. Yeah. Which will all be captured by the machine one day, won't it?
Yeah. Interestingly, though, even with a call center, typically they'll have maybe external metrics or KPIs at a higher level that dictate the kind of the amount of calls they can get through. That's normally the performance indicator. So how do you couple that with data entry, where you're actually, by imposing a data quality metric in terms of the quality of data that's entered, you're actually potentially slowing down them. Then how do you do that resolution? And that's maybe where it comes down to, evaluating systems, and is it difficult to actually capture quality information? Have we, could we do some kind of system improvement around the front end application to make it easier for them to actually be able to capture this information more efficiently?
I haven't been worked in front-end dev probably for 15 years when I stumbled across Sybase IQ many years ago. So I just have to put that into every podcast. Is actually I saw on the actually it's called SAP IQ now, so I need to get my naming right. But I'm assuming, as in the analytics world, if you build it, they won't come. So generally in BI, people build things that the end users don't want. I can't see it being any different from the front-end systems as well, that get developed by someone, but you've never sat in the call center, don't understand the needs, but also don't understand what are the key metrics as part of that. So this is a wild assumption, but I can only assume that they, from the front-end world, they face the same challenges that we do, is if you don't engage with the person, the end user, you're going to develop something that they're not really going to find useful. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe a good time to talk about Information Steward, being kind of SAP's premier data quality tool. I guess platform agnostic as well. So it's something that I'm getting a lot more hands-on experience with at the moment, and I'm actually really enjoying it. So just to talk a little bit about its capabilities from a data quality perspective, it's really it's running on the data services engine. So it has all the connectors and all the transform capability that data services has. But it's a web-based front end where you're able to identify, you're able to do some ad hoc profiling. So point it to a data source.
Yeah.
Run some very, very sophisticated profiling. So not only really in-depth column analysis and word distribution and things like that, and null percentages and unique patterns and so on, but also redundancy profiling, dependency profiling, so kind of foreign key, primary key relationships, and also uniqueness. Okay. So if you are looking for, what's the grain of this table, actually being able to identify what which columns together provide the unique key for that table. So that's kind of the first part, and probably more of a technical use case for ETL teams or BI teams, is just around that kind of ad hoc profiling. But then the capability that I think takes it to the next level is then being able to define a business rule or a data quality rule that you want to monitor ongoing, and you then can define that. You link that to a data domain, so that may be finance or HR or whatever part of your business that makes sense. You then have a quality dimension, so whether it's an accuracy dimension or a conformity or an integrity rule, and then you save your rule and you build up a library of rules, and then you can schedule that data quality check to each day go and whatever interval to go and actually do that one-off profile, record the value, and then it'll actually build a trend over time which shows you the how that quality metric is tracking. But at any point along the way, you can also see the failed data, and automatically export that failed data into a different data store, and then from there you could then build a series of reporting, and kind of reports that are triggered by failed data coming in. So then you can actually include, you can build a business process around improving that failed data, and we're seeing a lot of use cases for that in our current project and our data quality initiative to actually let the business start to manage their quality of their information more proactively instead of reactively.
Yeah, I think if you have if you have tangible examples of where it's failing through the system, it's so much easier than casting the net wide. It's really fine tuning, and it could be 95% of your bugs are coming through two entities or two columns that are wrong or configured badly. It's that rule. And in terms of, I've only used Information Steward just playing around, not as sort of in your depth. From a visualization, what libraries are they using? Are they leveraging on Dashboard Designer, or using CVOM, or what is the reporting like within the tool?
It's not CVOM. They don't really have much visualization capability. It looks like it's built on the Flex engine. So, Will, go close the door. It's built on the Flex engine, and it's got some kind of basic charting around the quality metrics over time, like how they're trending. But there's not much inbuilt reporting, and that would be, but unlike the kind of the central management system database and that the actual repository behind Information Steward, where it keeps track of all this information, is actually a relational structure that you can query and build a universe on. So you can actually, and the other really cool thing is they actually have built in the ability to add custom attributes to pretty much any entity. So, because they've also got like a business glossary capability and some other capabilities in Information Steward. So you can actually add custom attributes and then track those, add your own data into them, and then actually that gets exposed through the backend database as well. So you can actually build a suite of reports, and hopefully it's something that they look at doing is providing a standard universe or an ERD on that database structure, and actually start to provide some standard reporting as well, so that you can do that. Yeah.
Does that not exist at the moment?
No, not that I've seen yet. There's a few posts out there about how to query the backend database, but I don't think
Yeah.
there's like a universe you can go and download that does it all. Maybe a side project for me.
Okay. I mean, on my side on the tools, I've used Quality Stage briefly. We had it for 2 months, and then no one decided to fund it, so we had to can it. And then from the address matching, I can't think of the name of the tools now. We're going back 2 or 3 years, but a lot of the cheaper tools that just do the fuzzy search, the matching, very much from the customer point of view.
Mm-hmm.
The trick, I don't know if it's in Australia with this, you probably won't have the same problem, but being based in Africa, the dictionary is always a huge problem, especially from a quality point of view, from names, the name search, the address search, to get localized was huge issues, because a lot of the stumbling blocks I came in was always US or UK based, and that pretty much was it. Is that something you've run into down here in Australia?
No, I mean, I guess we're lucky. We're one of those countries where all the libraries are pretty well defined. But that's kind of coming back to data services and their quality component. I know they put a lot of emphasis on always releasing new updates to their libraries, new countries they support, both from a postal and from a language, and for names, local names and companies and things like that. So they're constantly updating those. Yeah. So I guess it depends on the quality product you're looking at as well.
I mean, these were a lot more affordable than the other two we mentioned. So that's all the customers willing to pay, and then we kind of had to build libraries up ourselves as we went along.
Yeah. So last point, I guess we can't have a podcast talking about HANA. Yeah, we're going to start talking about HANA anymore. And I know we've both kind of spoken about this previously as well, but in-memory databases and what they actually mean from a quality perspective. What do you think?
So I wrote a blog post about this last year when I was in Singapore and I couldn't sleep, which is a bit worrying. It worries me tremendously. I said, if you look at in-memory and you look at where everybody assumes it's going, it's kind of drinking from the fire hose of information. So it's collapsing all the tiers. So the data's going to come in and we're going to analyze it straight away. We're going to drop the tiers and all that great stuff. My problem is that, through the source systems that we have, through staging, through going into data models, through using ETL, to doing all these various tiers, we still can't get data quality right. We still can't figure out how to get sane information. So how are you possibly going to do that on the fly in memory? That worries me. If you're coming from a single source system, which I don't know any customers, for example, that will have in-memory solutions that will have that, fine, it's going to work. But as soon as you start bringing 6, 7, 8 disparate data sources together, that really worries. I mean, that's one of the things that fundamentally worries me. On the positive side, for HANA, let's just throw it out there, the data quality libraries are built in there. So it's an extra, for me, it's an extra line of defense. So when you're loading, you can already run stuff through those libraries immediately. And to me, that's awesome. It's something I haven't played with yet, but I want to play with in the next week or two. It's just putting up lines of defense. It's putting up extra walls to cleanse as it comes in. So that's very positive.
Yeah, one of I mean the data quality transforms like within the SQL library are great, but is it too late, by that point to actually be doing data quality, right? Like if you're doing it on the query level, isn't it a bit late in the day to be trying to capture that, and I think going back to our discussion last week around ETL and what's happening with that is, for the customer that comes along and buys ERP running on HANA and they don't need any other systems, then a lot of the things that cause data quality issues maybe are reduced. So, master data management. Well, I've got one system where I need to capture all that data. So, is that a plane going over your head or?
My head.
Yeah. This is humming noise. So.
Sorry, my engine's warming up.
Yeah. William, your master data capture it becomes more simple, right? You're not having to do it in multiple places, but it's still easy enough to actually include wrong type bad data into your transaction, or to make a spelling mistake in your master data, that doesn't go away just because you've got a faster system and you don't have distributed applications. But when we come back to that use case where we're having to pull multiple systems into HANA to do our analytics, well, we've got exactly the same issue that we have with data warehouse at the moment. All of that doesn't go away. So I'd agree that it's definitely not a panacea. You'll have the tools on kind of loading the data into HANA from a quality perspective, as well as we've talked about the data quality query capability. Yeah. So data coming out of HANA, you can apply some kind of a query, but it always comes back to it's more of a business process that needs to be implemented and managed. It's not something that just gets fixed from a technical solution.
Correct, because the data quality on the SQL coming out is a band-aid approach. It's as always with I've said it so many times, and in all the companies I've worked in, is that BI is wrong. It's your report's broken, it doesn't work, and then you go back down the chain. You look at that, you look at SQL, you go look at the data warehouse, and you say that looks fine. You go to the ETL, and that looks fine, and then you go down the chain, and it always comes to the source system. And I know you guys couldn't hear me on another call, but I was saying if people stop creating bad data, the problem would go away. It's to me it's so crystal clear. But the in-memory message is great, but it just worries me because if you look at the world in general, we had a whole lot of niche vendors, for example, just in any organization, let's look at IT. We had a whole lot of niche vendors. They've all been gobbled up either by SAP or IBM. That's gone. If you look at big business, there are a lot of niche sort of companies. They've all been gobbled up into groups or chains. That's what's happened in the world. And with that comes, just what's going off there? What's happening with that is
William, shh. Will, shush.
See, as soon as my data holds up to have a point, what's that's happening is that you're going to have 8, 9, 10 systems. It's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
And in-memory is not going to solve that problem. And I'll put a link to my blog post in the show post. I know data quality is not the sexiest thing, and people don't really read about it. But that does worry me, because from an implementation point of view, I don't want a customer of mine buying something that thinks is going to solve the world's problems. You've got to go in and try implement it, and they say, well, okay, we've still got the same problems, we're just finding out faster.
But maybe it's something we also throw back to the other people in the SAP community from a more of an ERP system and an application design perspective. I actually, and this is something I'm not sure about. What do they do to improve the quality of data that's being captured in their systems? What initiatives? Because unfortunately for us, all we have, we control the ETL and the data warehouse and the BI. Everything from our perspective is reactive. And like you said, people complain because the most visible data quality issues are most visible in reporting, and analytics. So then, that's so far downstream from where the data is actually captured that you have to track it all the way back. So what's actually been done on the front end to actually improve this so that it's not an issue, downstream?
Yeah. I cannot answer that question, but that'll be very interesting. Maybe we've just come up with our next podcast.
Yeah. Okay, let's
talk about that right.
My son gets too excited.
Too rowdy.
Thanks very much. That was very enjoyable. There you go. See, told you. I have to go feed him breakfast. He's probably a bit hungry. It's only 7 o'clock now. Let's try to occasionally. Cool. All right. Well, you have a great weekend, and until next time, my friend. All right.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. Cheers.
Thanks.
This podcast is hosted and sponsored by EV Technologies. Visit us on the net at savethecms.com. D-Slayer!